My mother always told me to trust my gut instincts because they were never wrong. However, sometimes my heart gets in the way of what my gut is trying to tell me. Looking back, I wish I'd listened to my intuition because it would have saved me a lot of trouble. But thankfully, I made it out alive. These are my 3 instincts I should have listened to. And stay till the end because no, one might just save your life one day. Story 1, The Vanishing Ride. I had just gotten off work and was walking home through the city center when I saw this cute guy reading a book on a bench outside of a coffee shop. Tall, handsome, and charming, I couldn't help but walk up to him and start chatting. Soon enough, he looked up from his book and gave me a warm smile that could melt butter. Then he asked me if I wanted to grab a coffee. And while I was initially hesitant, I couldn't say no to such a good-looking guy. After we had our coffee, I told him that I needed to get home. It was then that he offered to drive me home since he was going that way. At that point, my gut screamed at me to say no, but I ignored my instincts and got into his car. I knew that it was a bad idea as soon as we pulled onto a dark street. I told him that I was sure that I had missed my turn, but instead of replying, he just kept driving. My stomach dropped as he turned down a dark, narrow road lined with tall trees. They were so close together that they blocked out the sun, casting an eerie shadow on the road ahead. The silence was broken only by the crunching of leaves beneath the tires and the distant hoot of an owl. I tried to keep calm, but my heart was pounding in my chest. Then it hit me. This wasn't a shortcut, it was a dead end. Suddenly, the car stopped. The engine was turned off, and the only sound that could be heard was the sound of my own breathing. That's when he turned to me and said, "I wasn't planning on taking you home anyway." His words hit me like a bucket of cold water. In that moment, fear coursed through my body. My hands trembled as I reached for the door handle. Thank God it was unlocked. I flung the door open and jumped out of the car without even waiting for it to come to a complete stop. I didn't look back, I just kept running. I didn't stop until I reached my house, where I collapsed on the front porch, gasping for breath. When I finally looked back, I saw the silhouette of the man standing by his car, watching me. I told my mom everything that happened, but she just shook her head and said, "I told you so." She called the cops, but they said that there was nothing they could do since I couldn't give them any details about the man or where he lived. What had I been thinking getting into a stranger's car? Mom grounded me for a month after that, but I knew that it was for my own good. I had narrowly escaped a dangerous situation, and I was lucky to have trusted my gut and made a run for it, and I promised myself I would never make that mistake again. After this experience, I did some digging and found out that there was another girl who had gone missing after a night out with this very same guy. Her name was Sarah, and she had disappeared a year prior. The authorities had suspected foul play, but without any evidence, they couldn't prove it. So I started to ask around and eventually found out where he lived. It turned out that he lived in a small cottage on the outskirts of town. No one knew him well, but they all agreed that he was strange and kept to himself. Some people even claimed that they had seen Sarah's face peering out from behind his curtains. Despite this, the police had been unable to find any trace of her, leading them to believe that she may have run away. However, my gut feeling told me otherwise. With Sarah's family desperate for answers, I convinced them to let me search the property. And much to everyone's shock, I actually found evidence that led the police to dig up the backyard. And that's when they discovered Sarah's remains. While I was glad to have helped bring Sarah's family some closure, I couldn't help but wonder if things would have been different if I had listened to my gut instincts and not gotten into his car that night. Story 2, The Locked Door. One day, my friend set me up on a blind date with a guy named Michael. The two of us met at a casual restaurant and immediately hit it off. He was good-looking and had a great sense of humor. Plus, he was tall with broad shoulders and a charming smile. But most importantly, he seemed genuine and kind. We talked for hours over candlelight dinners and strolled hand in hand through the city streets, laughing and enjoying each other's company. He asked me to come over to his place, and I quickly agreed. We exchanged numbers, and I couldn't wait for the next time I'd see him. After we said our goodbyes, I headed over to his apartment. Walking inside, I was greeted by a dimly lit living room with the windows and doors closed. I asked him why, and he just gave me a nervous laugh and said, "Oh, just a little privacy." He turned off the lights and lit some candles, and I should have left right then and there, but something kept me there. We moved to his bedroom, and he began to get more and more touchy. And just when I thought things were going well, his eyes suddenly flashed and he grabbed me roughly. "What are you doing?" I shouted. He just stared at me for a moment before regaining his composure and apologizing profusely. I left his apartment quickly. However, when I got home, I couldn't stop replaying the incident in my head. Was I in danger? Had I made a mistake by going to his apartment? The more I thought about it, the more I realized that I had been lucky to escape unharmed. Later, I saw his mugshot on TV. He had been arrested for holding another woman captive in his apartment, and I realized that my gut instincts had been right all along. I should have trusted my gut and not gone to his apartment that night, but now I was glad that I had listened to my body and gotten out of there when I did. And story 3, the house in the woods. I had recently moved to a new city and was looking forward to starting fresh. And as I started to settle in, I decided to sign up for a hiking group to explore the beautiful wilderness that surrounded the area. It was there that I met Ben, a friendly and adventurous guy who was always up for a good time. We quickly became friends, and he invited me to go on a weekend camping trip with him and some of his friends. While I was initially hesitant, I decided to go for it, and I'm glad that I did. On the drive to the location, I noticed that Ben kept taking us down unfamiliar roads, and the scenery started to look more desolate. As we continued on, I began to feel uneasy. Finally, we arrived at a clearing, and I saw a small cabin nestled among the tall trees. It looked nice, but there was something about it that I couldn't quite put my finger on. Ben introduced me to the other people who were already gathered outside the cabin, all of them smiling and excited to be there. They were all strangers to me, and I felt a surge of unease as I looked around for a familiar face. After everyone had settled in, I decided to take a closer look around the cabin. As I walked inside, I noticed that the walls were covered with Polaroids of women sitting in the same chair that I had been sitting in. They were all smiling and looked happy, but something about their eyes bothered me. It was as if they were vacant and lifeless. I couldn't help but shiver as I looked at them, trying to shake off the strange feeling that was creeping up on me. I decided to change the subject and try to make conversation, but Ben kept giving me weird looks. After some time, I suggested that we take a walk in the woods to explore the area. Everyone seemed enthusiastic about the idea except for Ben, who didn't seem too keen on the suggestion. But he eventually agreed, and we all headed out into the forest. As we walked along the path, I couldn't help but feel like we were being watched. The trees seemed to be closing in on us, and the sunlight filtering through the canopy created an eerie play of light and shadow on the ground. I tried to shake off the feeling, but it only intensified as we continued our walk. When we returned to the cabin, I decided to slip out a back window and hide in the bushes. I stayed there for days, eating berries and drinking water from the stream nearby. It wasn't easy, but I was determined to escape and start over somewhere else. After a few days, I managed to make my way to a nearby town and flagged down a passing car. The driver was a friendly woman who took me in and gave me food and water. She also contacted the police and told them about the cabin in the woods. The authorities raided the cabin and found dozens of missing women's belongings, but no sign of any of them. The case remains unsolved to this day, and I can't help but wonder if my gut instincts had been right all along.